Hi everyone, welcome to our first ever live CV rewrite session. Myself and Mel have been very busy this morning, haven't we, Mel? Prepping our little hearts out to help you today. And we've just asked a few of you, I think, have already sent your CV to the team at 7 Career Coaching email. So in the last 20 minutes, do stick around because Mel's going to take one of your CVs and actually work through it and show you how to remodel that. But before we do, just a quick introduction to Mel Pritchard, who is one of our phenomenal career coaches at 7. Mel is a bit of a CV whiz kid. You're able to kind of help people work wonders on their CVs and really ultimately achieve amazing results, which is what a CV is all about. Mel, do you want to sort of highlight what we're going to be covering today?
Absolutely. So welcome, everyone. I actually love helping people with CVs. You can achieve very quick transformation, as Evelyn said, both aesthetically and substantively, because the substance matters. So what are we going to be covering? We're going to touch on who we can be helping, which is all of you guys. We're going to be looking at what employers are looking for in a standout CV, the killer question. And then we're going to deep dive and break this down for you guys so it's super clear. We're going to look at the structure of a CV. We're going to look at maybe what a not so good CV looks like. What do you guys think should be improved on that? And then we're going to look at a really good one and see, okay, so what are the differences? How can I make mine look like the really great one there? Then we are going to move on to one of your CVs, and we're going to go through that live together so you can actually apply the learnings. And then we're going to wrap up with some CV howlers. So some quite funny things that you definitely should not be doing.
Okay, great. And just to say thank you to Christine and Sanam. We've received both of your CVs, so we will be working on your CVs towards the end in the last 20 minutes. And just to say as well, if you do have any questions as we're working through the content, feel free to put them in the chat box. We already have about 4, Mel, so we can kind of get to those as I kind of work out they kind of fit into the content. But do make your comments, do ask questions, and then we will make it as relevant to you as we possibly can as we're going through. Let's get moving, Mel, and I'll come to the questions and comments as it works.
Awesome. So well, we're really pleased that all of you guys are here. Evelyn and I were discussing the ideal audience, and we both agree that actually anyone is ideal because all CVs serve the same purpose, to make a cracking first impression. They should always be bespoke and evidence-based. So whether you're someone who's thinking, you know, I like my job, but actually now I've had some time out, I really want to change career, this is for you. If you're someone who's actually quite worried at the moment and thinking, oh my God, I'm really worried I'm going to lose my job, or maybe you've lost your job, this is also for you. And equally, you might be someone who just thinks, you know what, I'm not going to change careers anytime soon, but what a fab opportunity to improve my CV now. So I'm in, you know, red hot shape for when my dream role comes up. So hopefully you guys can all relate to those different categories and you all fit within one of those. It doesn't matter what your job title is. It doesn't matter what your level is, whether you're graduate, undergraduate, postgrad, trainee, associate, partner. This is for everyone. So hopefully you'll find it really helpful. I've got a great fun first question for everyone here. I'd like you to guess the average time that an employer spends looking at your CV. Now, to give you a bit of guidance, I'm going to give you 3 options, and please write down in the chat box which you think it is. So option number 1, 30 seconds. Option number 2, 2 minutes. Option number 3, 4 minutes. So 30 seconds, 2 minutes, or 4 minutes, the average time spent looking at a CV. Please write your answer in the chat box. Ooh.
Judy says, oh, there's loads coming in. 30, 30.
Oh. Fabulous. We've got 1, 2, 30. Well done. We've got lots of 30s. That is the, wow, loads. That is the right answer. Well done.
I heard it was 15 seconds, so 30 seconds is kind of generous for that. Okay, I think the general consensus is 30 seconds.
Fabulous.
Ollie, try to refresh. We just have someone with a sound issue.
Okay. So there we are. Straight away, what does that tell us? 30 seconds. Employers want to make a very quick first impression on you. So we need to have it aesthetically sharp, great structure, easy to read, headline titles, and very nice, simple, punchy bullets with lots of juicy buzzwords. We're going to come on to that, so don't worry if you're thinking, what the heck does she mean? We will be getting there shortly. So
Great.
if you agree, Evelyn, what do you think about having a little brainstorm of what employers are actually looking for in a CV? Why do we need one?
Well, can I just put one point in ahead of that, Mel, because it fits in quite nicely. It's just something I noticed when I was working with clients for years, and I found a bit of research saying the average applicant spends, it was seconds, I don't know if it was 35 or 40 seconds reading the job brief. So before you even get to the CV, I again and again, I used to print off my clients' job briefs, and we would go through it with a highlighter, picking out buzzwords, keywords, traits, characteristics, training, anything you can imagine, and we would really work on that. And that I'd love to know, if from anyone in the chat box, how long do you spend reading a job spec? Do you spend 30 seconds? Do you spend half an hour? Do you spend a few minutes? Are you picking out those key points? Because it's giving you the content that they're looking for, and then you can reverse engineer essentially. But get back to your point, Mel. I just wanted to kind of pop that in there.
That's an excellent point, Evelyn. And just to beef up your superb point, I completely agree. I was once told by a recruiter, one of the biggest problems companies have, you rock up, you've got the interview, amazing, exciting, and they ask you a question like, what do you expect to be doing day to day in this role? Blank face or substandard answer. Or could you summarize what our company does in one sentence? Again, in substantive answers. So get really clear on that job description. What would you be doing day to day? You should be able to explain that. And it should be woven throughout your bullet points on your CV. You should literally be lifting the language and the skills that they're mentioning. So if they're saying reviewing dense amount of documentation, you want to see those words on your CV. And as Evelyn said, go through the highlighter and score through to clarify that you're putting them all in your CV. I always say careers and love are actually quite similar. So you're aligning yourself as the perfect soulmate for this company. So they've given you a specification of what they want in the job description, and you want to show them, I'm your soulmate. Look, we mirror and match. Let's get married forever. So look at the job spec and really mirror it, show them that you're perfect. You're their soulmate.
Some really good comments there. Nadia said she spends about 20 minutes going through the skills in job specs, and Isabel said she feels like she spends way too long. And it can take her days and days to answer. But I was just saying there, when you know what to do, you can work smarter, right, Mel? That's the whole point of what you're teaching here. It's being strategic.
Absolutely. And one thing I'd say to that point, it can take a while when you do it for the first time. So be kind to yourself. Do a first draft, then improve it. Once you've cracked it for life. You've got that structure, and you'll be sitting there marveling at how superb you look on paper. And we'll show you tricks during the session if you're thinking, oh God, that sounds impossible. It's really easy when you know how.
Okay, great. So, Mel, what's the next? Where are we going from here? Do you want?
Yes, let's look at what employers are looking for. So we've just touched on that really. So it might be obvious to you guys, but they're looking for someone who has the skills and experience to do the job. It sounds easy when you put it like that, doesn't it? So what Evelyn said was spot on. You want to be showing examples of those skills and weaving those skills into bullet points which reflect evidence of your experience. Okay, so straight off the bat, let's just have a brainstorm together of what are those killer skills, because the good news is, guys, you have the job description and that will have some specific skills mentioned, but all top employers want the same sort of 8 killer skills, 8 or so killer skills. There might be some extras and we'll come on to that, but I'm going to let you into the secret of what those skills are now. So the first one that employers always want is analytical skills. Someone who can analyze material, information, people, and hopefully fast. And analyzing analytical skills is always with a view to the next killer skill, problem-solving skills. Okay, so being able to analyze information or people to solve or identify a problem. So let's say you're given a document and you're analyzing it for a client, and you identify, oh, I've noticed a bit of an issue here. This could be a problem for the client. It could solve the money, and you flag that. Now that's someone who's really adding value. So we have analytical skills, problem-solving skills, interpersonal skills. So being able to work with a range of different stakeholders, fabulous commercial word. And what we mean by that is a range of clients and a range of colleagues, perhaps at all levels, from trainees and admin staff to senior partners right the way up. And by clients, it could be anyone from high net worth individuals to finance clients. It depends on the area you're in. So interpersonal skills, you want to be evidencing as a key skill. That links with the next key skill, skill number 4, which is communication skills. So by that, what are we talking about? Verbal communication skills, being able to talk to colleagues and clients well, coming across well, being articulate, succinct, and written skills, of course. And obviously languages come in here. So written skills could be anything from writing letters, writing reports, whatever's relevant. So we've got analytical, problem solving, interpersonal, communication. Another key one is commercial awareness. And that's a term that often scares people. Don't worry if you're thinking, what the heck does that mean? It basically means understanding how to do your best work for clients, how to make money, because if the clients are happy, the business makes money. So things like being aware that doing work accurately will make a great first impression, shows commercial awareness. Even things as small as knowing that you need to try and work things out on your own before going to the CEO, because he's probably very busy, shows that you're very commercially aware, because he's a busy man. He's the one, really making the money here. So commercial awareness, how can you sort of show that you understand that businesses work, how businesses work really, and we'll come on to that. So another couple of killer skills that we should just touch on, attention to detail. So that's usually pretty valued. So being able to spot errors. So let's say you were drafting a letter for a client. Obviously, someone who sends a letter out with mistakes is going to make a very bad impression on a client. A letter that's well written with no mistakes looks very professional. Another killer skill, research skills, sometimes valuable for certain jobs like law, and maybe sort of if you want to go into like banking as an analyst. For other jobs, not so much. Another killer skill, which is usually valued, is innovation or creativity. And if you're panicking and thinking, oh no, I'm not creative, you all are, because we've all created simple solutions to problems. Even if it's something as silly as created a more streamlined Excel spreadsheet so that we could hold a lot of complex, important information in one place. There you are, an example of innovation. You using your initiative to improve a system and streamline or improve the business. And what other skills have we missed off? Oh yes, teamwork, very important. I'd like you to just ask yourself this question. How have you ever felt when you've worked in a team and one person let you down, didn't pull their weight, or was lazy? Yeah, it's never good, is it? It sort of messes everything up. So teamwork is another killer skill. So those are the top skills there that all employers want. And we're going to pepper these examples throughout our bullets. And we'll come on to that shortly.
So Mel, just a quick few points there, because there's a lot there. But I think one thing to remember for people is, attention to detail. There's a lot of communication skills. There's actually a lot of skill you can show in how you apply for a job, in how you put together your CV, and in how you write your cover letter. And one of the points we were talking about earlier is obviously the focus right now is on remote working. And really when you're hiring someone for remote work, your focus is going to be a bit more on, can I trust this person? Are they going to be doing other work around my work? Do they have self-initiative? Do they have attention to detail? Managing from afar is different, isn't it, for any manager or leader? But there's been a few questions here, and I think let's just get to this actually, Mel, before we move on, because it's to do with the cover letter, which obviously we're not talking about today, but we may do a follow-on session just on cover letters. But let's just touch on it. Judy's asked, how much of the examples of evidence go into the cover letter and into the CV, and how much should or shouldn't they repeat themselves? That's a really good question.
Excellent question. Is it Judy? Fab question. Yeah. So the difference between the CV and a cover letter is, well, the similarity is they're both bespoke, but a CV is a more kind of shortened, bulleted, really overall report of your career history, but tailored to the job. But a cover letter is more seductive. It's more creative. It's more sort of, it's still very structured, but you can express passion better. So we'll come on to this perhaps in another webinar, but a cover letter essentially has 2 paragraphs. The first paragraph is seducing them with 3 specific bespoke reasons why you are nuts and in love with their company, and they're the only soulmate for you. 3 specific reasons why them, and they must be evidence-based. If you don't give evidence, you'll seem, substandard. So you need to research 3 specific points about them. And then the second paragraph in the cover letter is more related to the CV in essence. So it's picking out examples of the key skills that they're looking for with evidence of those skills. So we'll come on to that another time, but the second paragraph is really why evidence of you having the skills and experience for the job. So para 1, why them? Para 2, why you? Giving examples of the skills and experience.
And actually, Mel, one thing I would add is, if you think about it, the cover letter is kind of like the taster, isn't it? So you're not going into huge detail, but you are showcasing your suitability at a high level, so they can then flick over to your CV and actually go into the details. So it can repeat itself. It should repeat itself because it's kind of a taster.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly, Evelyn. So in that second paragraph, you're essentially lifting bulleted examples from your CV. But yeah, that can make a killer first impression. A really well-written cover letter is irresistible. And
just a few other little questions before we move on. Christine's son, we actually have Christine's CV we're going to be going through in the latter part of this. How to show your potential to be loyal to the business in your CV or cover letter. And Isabel said she would love a follow-up on cover letters. 2 paragraphs seems quite short to show everything, so I'd love to know more.
The reason why it might sound short, and I fully understand that, but the beauty of it is it shows that you're an excellent communicator. It shows all those skills that I just mentioned in abundance. It shows you're concise. It shows you're analytical. You're solving problems. You're really like a standout person. And if you're confused about that now, that's normal, but you really can do it. And I've got some top tips for how you can, and then it will make sense.
Okay, great. Let's move on. And Christine, I'm sure Mel will weave this into the points coming up anyway.
Evelyn, can I just add an extra point to your really great point earlier about excellent remote skills?
Yeah, go for it.
A top tip I would share with you guys that I learned, and I'm so glad I did as a trainee lawyer, which made me stand out from some of my peers, was problem solving. So when you're remote, you might feel a bit vulnerable because you can't just go and knock on someone's door. So you want to be showing, like Evelyn said, that you can use your initiative and sort of think on your feet. So when I was a trainee, rather than just sending an email, I'm confused, what's the answer? I'd always have this 3-second rule, and I'd ask myself, what haven't I considered here before I ask someone senior how to do this? How else could I approach this? So using the initiative to try and problem solve on your own, and then communicating in a more sort of minimal way, and sort of suggesting a solution if you can. That really adds value. That's a huge difference between someone who's average and someone who stands out, especially remotely.
That's a great point. So Nick has asked another point, which we'll move on from cover letters after this, and we will do a follow-up session on cover letters. So we can send that. We follow up today's session with an email to everybody with the replay and the key points, and we'll let you know what date we will schedule that for. But Nick said, should you stick to a template for a cover letter or be more creative in order to get the company's attention? And he also says, how to beat ATS software. I mean, you could probably do, this is like a whole session on its own, but yeah.
I would say, to be really honest, I mean, I love writing, and, you know, to be really honest, I'm pretty strong in writing. I would say try and stick to the template. If you're going for like media or something quite wacky or advertising, you know, there are more creative things that you can do, whether sort of aesthetically. But honestly, this template, it works every time. It really does. It's absolutely like breathtaking when you get it right, and you will when you've got the tools.
Great. And you're going to show us this shortly.
Definitely. But remember, the key point with cover letters, it's like love again. If you're going on a date and someone's banging on about how great they are, they're going to disengage you. If you start to seduce them first, they're going to be putty in your hands. So that's the main thing that most people don't do. You need to seduce the company with bespoke evidence of interest first.
Okay, great. Hopefully that helps you. Oh yeah, Gregor asked about ATS software, but we'll kind of move on from the cover letter now, and we'll let you know when that session will be.
Great. So should we have a quick look at the structure of the CV? Start off with the nuts and bolts. What do you think, Evelyn?
Yes, let's go for it.
So I think Evelyn has a wonderful slide for us to share with you guys. So let's just see if we can get this on the screen for you. And this will show you the structure of the CV. So as Evelyn is doing that, I'm just going to talk you guys through that. So at the top of the CV, pretty obvious, we're going to start with your name, of course. And all you need underneath is your email address and your telephone number. You can put your address, but you don't have to. All you need is your name in big, bold capitals underneath your email address and telephone number on one line. Straight under that, we jump into education. So again, bold caps titles, education. starting with your most recent first, and we'll show you this shortly. We're just going to whiz through now. Next, you have experience. Now, this is an important point. You'll have 2 experience sections with bullets of your evidence of that experience. The first one will be tailored to the area you're applying to. So let's say you're going to be a lawyer. The first experience section would say legal experience. If you want to go into finance, it would be finance experience. If it was media, media experience. The second next section would say additional experience. So you have 2 experience sections. What you're showing there is you're bespoking the first one as closely as possible to the job you're applying to. And if you're thinking, oh, but my additional experience is in different areas, that's still really helpful because you're showing powerful transferable skills that the employer will love, and your commercial awareness in different arenas. So that's why we have 2 different sections. The next section under the experience sections is achievements and positions of responsibility. So this might be other things. Let's assume that you're a recent graduate. You might have been, I don't know, editor of a newspaper or president of a society, or I don't know, played hockey for England. Obviously, these are pretty inspiring examples here. So that's the next section. And finally, we have an additional skills section. So that's things like IT skills, any specific sort of software skills, depending on what you're going into. Like lawyers would have legal research experience with certain programs. Other additional skills would be languages as well there. And then finally, we just wrap up with an interest section, very small, but you don't just want to show that you're 1D. You want to show you're a colorful, fun person who people would love to share an office with 5 days a week. So do, go a bit large here, express some of your personality. So, rather than just saying cooking, maybe say, passionate about cooking, currently perfecting, the dream Thai green curry. And they'll think, oh, they sound like good fun to share an office with. So be a bit colorful in the interest section. So in terms of the slide,
well, can I just check with you? Can you see?
Yep, that's yeah. Hopefully, can you guys all see that okay? If anyone can't, just let us know. You could probably make it a bit bigger if that's possible. At the moment, it's sort of you, me, and then the slide, rather than the sort of fuller screen as before.
Oh yeah, okay. Let me just.
Let's just have a little fiddle here. Just while everyone's doing
that, I'm figuring out this software, which isn't as.
Well, oh, there we are. Perfect, Evelyn. Great work.
Okay, great.
Just scroll down a tiny bit, Evelyn. That would be lovely. So if you just, that's it. Perfect, lovely. Bingo. There you are, guys. Just what we discussed. So have a quick read over that, just to embed what we've just shared. You'll see the only addition is a 1 line at the bottom, references available on request. So very simple, clear structure. The substantive part is the experience part. Remember that bit. And we'll go on and show you those in a bit more detail now. So should we pop on to the next slide, Evelyn? Let's have a look at what you guys think of this. So if we could just shrink that a tiny bit, Evelyn, that would be wonderful, if that's feasible. That's great. If you could just move down the page a little bit. Perfect. Amazing. Thank you. Right. So guys, over to you. Just have a read of what you have in front of you. Notice what you like and what you don't like. Okay, just have a quick read. We'll give you a minute to do that. So I'd love to know what you guys were thinking was sort of good or bad about that. How about you share any concerns that you have about the CV in the chat box with us so we can...
Can I just make an obvious point? Obviously, Mel arranged the presentation slides in a horizontal way just to be able to fit as much on the screen as we go. So we know this isn't what a normal
exactly
would look like from a format perspective, but it's just for the purposes of today, just so you're aware.
Let's see. Very brief, straight to the point, laughing face. Love that. Bad formatting, capitalization stood out to me. Excellent. Looks exactly like my current CV. Very cramped and hard to browse. Great. Very messy. Hobbies show no personality. Like it. Savage but true, Nick. Spelling errors. Great. Layout could be better. Lovely. Name is too short.
Lots of lowercase. For some reason.
Absolutely. So you guys are hitting lots of high notes here. You also don't need to put your nationality in, or your date of birth, or your address, as we said. Lots of inconsistencies, bad formatting, some things bold, some things not, different size fonts. You guys have hit them all. And really bland interests, law. What would you think? Boring to share an office with. How about we move on to the next slide and have a look at a contrasting version and see what you make of this by contrast. So this is the education section. So you'll remember that's the top part of your CV. Have a very quick look, just 10 seconds, see what you think.
Much cleaner, obviously.
Easy
to read.
Like, guys, easy to read. Great, Cara. So you can see, guys, that much easier. We've got everything's nicely formatted. All the dates are in one place, exactly the same format. We've got clear, bold headings. And you can tell as well some bespoke standout points. So under the graduate diploma in law, we have an example of an essay, which will be no doubt relevant to the job that this person is applying for. So what's this showing? It's showing you as an expert in your field. So if you have any standout modules, say you have a 70% or a high grade in something that you feel is relevant to the job, do include that as an extra piece of detail in your education section. You'll notice there the grades are very clear, 2-1 in psychology, A-levels very clearly stated. It's important to put your A-levels and the grades and your GCSEs, ideally. You don't want to be putting both of those. So that's the education section, super clear. Should we whiz on to the next slide? Great format, totally, Christine. So we're now moving on to the body of the CV. So why don't you guys just have a quick sort of 20-second scan of this and let's see what you think. Evelyn, can you just move it down a tiny bit just for the bottom line? Just a bit. That's it. Perfect. Thanks. So what are you guys liking in this? Tell us what you like. What do you like about this one, about the experience section? Too much to read, one person says. Interesting. Any other thoughts? Quantifying achievements. Excellent, Cara. Very good point. Exactly. Examples of work. Brilliant. Gives context. Excellent. Exactly, guys. So you've just hit on one of the key points. Evidence, evidence, evidence. If there's one thing you take away from this, it's all about evidence. So we want to have, as you're saying, very good, dynamic action words, assisted, working on, proofreading, undertaking research. And already we've got key skills woven in there. Research skill, key skill, proofreading. Ooh, that's attention to detail, isn't it? And analytical skills, great. Oh, and proofreading 3 50-page witness statements. Wow, that person's very resilient. They can absorb an awful lot in a short space of time. Fabulous. Working as part of a team, teamwork skill, right there. Assisted in reviewing 3,000 emails. There's your analytical skill. So you can see powerful action verbs are fabulously done here. And you'll also notice, which you guys are mentioning in your comments here, that we've got some lovely simple bullets, making it this super easy to process for the reader. So we want to have really no more than 4 bullets, ideally, 5 max. Weaving in your skills and experience. So the skill can be woven into the verb usually. It doesn't have to be, I showed resilience doing this. It can be something simple as proofread a 40-page document in 20 minutes and was praised by a partner for this. Okay, so
Mel, can I ask a question? Just because there's a slight difference in quantifying, obviously, is really important to quantify the impact that you had and the value you added. Ooh. But one sort of slight grammatical difference that I would use with clients, and I've done myself, but maybe like I'm just wondering. So I would normally put the numbers in numbers. I know it's not grammatically correct, but I advise people to do that mainly because it was very quick and easy to see. Yes. 3,000 or a team of 5, 30 bundles, 50-page. I know it's not grammatically correct, and maybe you would say actually you're better off, being grammatically correct. But what do you think about that?
I totally agree with you, Evelyn. This was actually a screenshot, so I couldn't actually make any changes, I'm afraid. to this example, but I totally agree with Evelyn. Numbers in number form rather than words are much easier to read. So always ask yourself, for every bullet, are there any numbers I can include here? So often clients will say something like, proofread document for partner. Okay, vague. Proofread 30-page residential property contract for time short partner and was praised for spotting a significant anomaly for a client. Wowzers. Look at that difference. So you've gone from something vague to something specific and evidence-based with a number as to the length, with something that you spotted as an anomaly, attention to detail, that's probably going to impress the client. Commercial awareness there. So what you can do is you can do your sort of first drafted bullet. Don't worry about getting it perfect straight away, and then step back from it and ask yourself, what can I improve here? Now, you can do that through a couple of different top tips that I'm going to share with you now. So the first one is, ask yourself, what was I doing? So I'm thinking back to something, it might have been a while ago, what was I doing? And just say it out loud to yourself, to remind yourself, because there might have been a little bit more that you haven't added in there. And to make sure that you're adding that in, you can ask yourself, how was I doing that? So what was I doing and how was I doing it? So to give you an example of an average bullet, sometimes a client will say, produced report for partner, average, vague, no evidence. A better client will step back from that first draft and say, how was I doing that report? Step back. Well, what were the stages? Well, I had to research some complex employment law, identify the key provisions, and summarize that in a short research note for a busy partner. So you've gone from your initial draft, which is vague, created a report, to asking yourself, what were the stages? How was I doing it? And in doing so, you've woven in some killer skills there. You've got analyzing, you've got researching, and then you've got summarizing, a great example of communication skills for someone who's very busy. Bingo. So ask yourself, what was I doing? How was I doing it? What were the stages? The third thing you can do is ask yourself, why was I doing it? And this is a great one for showing commercial awareness. So if you're saying, for example, to clarify a key legislative point for a complex fraud trial, wow. Now, doesn't that sound impressive? It's just showing that you understand the purpose of what you're doing, or analyzed, I don't know, the client's budget to ensure we could provide maximum value. Again, it's showing that you're commercially aware, you know why you're doing something, and that's someone who can really stand out in a crowded market. So what were you doing? How are you doing it in terms of stages, and why?
I think that one point I just put in there, which is it's just rewording what you're saying, but showing the results are really important. But then, of course, as you're saying, you've got to show the process, and that gives you an opportunity to showcase the skills you used, right?
Exactly right, Evelyn. So the reason why I suggested those questions is because they help you to really jam in as many of those skills as possible. You can also step back when you've done that and literally look at that skills list that we mentioned and say, now, is there anything around resilience here? Oh, yes, I did it within 2 hours, this massive job. Is there anything around organizational skills, which is another? Oh, yes, I had to organize 40 bundles in half an hour. Wow, she's super organized. So step back and ask yourself, which skills haven't I included? Maybe you had to liaise with 5 different colleagues, I don't know, CEO all the way down. So, you know, mention that, because that shows your interpersonal skills and your communication skills. So step back, ask yourself, what other skills have I missed from this bullet? As Evelyn said, make sure you quantify things with any numbers, or if you reached a sales target, be sure to put that in. If you improved, I don't know, a percentage of sales or something by 20% that year, or you won a prize, or you're promoted, put that in. Show off as much as possible. So always mention the positive outcome if there was one as well.
And Mel, just a question from around the job spec. So when people are working out, you know, going through their CV and working out what they've done, quantifying the impact and the value that they made, do you recommend you do that first, completely just looking at what you've done, and then you come back over it with the job spec? Or are you using what they're looking for in the job spec as you're going through the first draft? How do you recommend people work?
Yeah, that's a really good question. So in a couple of slides, we're going to show you a really handy little table, a log that you can create, and it will take the stress out of this. If you're thinking, I don't have those skills, oh my gosh, where do I start? So you can create a little table for yourself with the key skills we mentioned, and adding in any extra skills in the job spec. So let's say you're going for a technical role, there might be something around coding skills. So add that in as another skill on one side of the table, and then give an example of those skills or maybe like 3 little bulleted examples of those skills in action on the right-hand side of your table. What that means is you've got all your skills in one place for any CV that you do, and then you can just lift those, pop them in your CV, and try and then, once you put them in, tailor those examples as much as possible to the wording in the job description. And what you can do,
just to say as well, we're getting so many questions that what we will, if we don't answer your question as we're going through the content, we'll get to, there's quite a few questions here. Mel, for instance, there was one just a legal professional, obviously, and she said she's heard that you need more than 2 pages for a legal CV, which is obviously an exception to the usual rule. Is that true?
I'm glad that you asked that question. So go on, Evelyn, after you.
No, I was just saying there's lots of other more complicated questions. We'll get to those towards the end, but that's just a quick one, Mel. I thought you could answer.
Firstly, guys, I think you'll find by the end most of your questions are answered. To be transparent, we'll see, and if not, we'll follow up on them. With a legal CV, and the general point is most CVs are 2 pages. That's the general rule. To my knowledge, unless you're a PhD student, they should not be more than 2 pages. Okay, so the usual exceptions are if you want to go into banking or consulting, often they will prefer 1 page. If you're unsure, call up the organization, simple, and ask someone in HR, would you like this to be 1 page or 2 pages? The important thing is that you fully fill the 1 page and you fully fill the 2 pages. Okay, so you really maximize the space as much as possible. But 2 pages is the norm unless you're going into banking or consulting, but always ring to check if you're unsure.
And Mel, just on that point, if I used to give people advice when they were changing career to call recruiters in certain industries, the industry they wanted to break into, or even their dream company, and try and get an information interview with the recruiter or the HR manager, whoever it is, to kind of find how they can tailor their application. But do you think that's something people should be doing? And do you think our HR managers open to that kind of call? Do they see that in a positive way or a negative way, or what do you think?
Well, this is hard because I think Evelyn and I are very similar here. We're both all about initiative and showing passion. If I could tell you guys the killer combo to get your dream job, it's evidence and passion for the company, evidence of skills and experience, and passion for the role. Now, an easy way to stand out from the crowd is going the extra mile, and that might be ringing the head of HR or the person, I don't know, or somebody that you can without ringing the person that you're going to be sending the application into, and just clarifying a few things so you're super clear. Something else I would do if I really wanted to get a job is I'd try and chat to someone that was probably on a similar level to the role I was applying to ask for any top tips. So not someone named on the job description, but someone else. So for example, where I trained, I do mock interviews for people who would be brilliant, but if they missed out one killer trait, they wouldn't get the job. And that was showing that they were innovative and quite a strong personality with lots of ideas. So it's really good to try and have a quick Skype call, phone chat with someone at the company, because every company has a different culture. So it's not just about hitting those skills and experience notes. It's about being a personality fit for their particular culture.
I think that's a brilliant point, Mel, because one of the things I think so many people do a like for like. So they're looking for these skills and this training, and they try and sort of matchy the CV to the job spec. But actually culture, I mean, especially as you said, passion is really important. I think now it's even more important, even if it is a bank or financial services. I think it's a more kind of sought after trait. And it lends itself quite nicely. Christine, I think, asked a question earlier about how to show loyalty to a potential company. So obviously, how can you showcase loyalty? But I think passion is probably the key. Totally. Passion and interest. If you're writing articles on your LinkedIn, or you have your own website or portfolio, or you're very active on Twitter in that industry, or you're going to conferences, you have evidence to show you're passionate and really interested in not just that company, but also the wider industry. And I think that's probably a great way to show potential loyalty, because it's kind of tricky to prove, right? Excellent.
That's such a good point, Evelyn. So don't go into flowery waffle on your CV in the experience sections. Passion stands out in things like achievements, positions of responsibility. So let's say you want to, go into banking, and you set up your own, banking society at university. That shows real passion. You've gone the extra mile. You've done something that your competitor might not have done. Or let's say you're a member of some industry bodies. It's like, wow, she's really serious. She's signed up to all these different industry bodies. She's a member of this, I don't know, networking event in the area, and she's even spoken on the area. Wow, you know. But the other point I would just add in around passion, which is the killer seller really with evidence, is you can express passion. You can really express that passion in cover letters and in interviews in a sort of different way. So by really showing that you've researched the company and giving bespoke, very sort of specific reasons why you're nuts about them. So the cover letter really comes alive in terms of expressing that passion.
So the cover letter really is kind of showing the passion, and then the interview, and then the CV is proving, it's giving the evidence to back up.
So the CV, if you like, if you think of a magazine, the CV is the headline information. So it's not waffly essay type style, it's headline information with key buzzwords. And we know what that means by now. It's the key skills, worked in a team of 4, analyzed complex documents, the killer skills, those buzzwords. So very much just focused on, those key points rather than swathes of detail.
Sorry, I'm just having a slight issue with my Mac charging off for some reason. Hopefully I'll get to that. So Mel, what's the where should we go to next from here? What?
Let's just move on to the next slide. We'll just move through the last slide. If you're able to get the next slide up, Evelyn, that'll be fab.
Yes.
So,
power and.
If you guys think about barristers in court, 2 barristers in court arguing a case, which is the one that wins in front of a jury? It's the one with the best evidence and who expresses that in the most passionate way. So CV is all about evidence, 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 evidence. So let's have a look. We're going to look at, here we are, we're back to the slide, excellent. So we're going to look at the next slide now. So here we are. This is an example of the achievements and positions of responsibility section. So just take literally 15 seconds to have a quick read of that. What do you guys like? Just drop your thoughts in the chat if you can. We'd love to hear what you're thinking.
I love the use of bold. It really easy to read. It really stands out what positions that you've had.
Absolutely, exactly. And look at all those juicy action verbs. They're amazing. We've got assembling a team, assisting and devising and implementing, launching, strategy, attracting new members. You could even put the number of members in there potentially, and a positive outcome, successfully recruited 94 members. And then further information about success, and left the society with balanced finances and a good platform for future expansion. So lovely, lovely example there of what to do well.
And actually that's a good point. One very, very simple thing is language that you use in your CV, using active verbs, just as Mel has just kind of given you a whole bunch there, but active verbs are really important. It just gives a sense of you being very kind of having self-initiative, being very enthusiastic and very, active, obviously. Exactly.
So for example, with communication, you could think of a few synonyms: summarized, reviewed, drafted a report. So yeah, you can sort of have a little list of different synonyms. Created, strategized, innovated, worked in a team of 3, lots of lovely positive action verbs there. Yeah. And then you can see also in the first example, course rep for the GDL, flesh it out. So this person's done a great job. They've said that they worked on a variety of issues such as student welfare, academic standards, and the provision of services. So often people are too vague. So ask yourself, imagine you were like painting a picture for a blind person. They can't see anything. Really, really express what you were doing. So rather than just saying helped with issues at university, vague, not specific evidence, give evidence of the specific areas that you worked on. Suddenly looks much more commercial and convincing. So you can see underneath that we have languages, fabulous, always state the level, IT skills, which is quite self-explanatory. Any additional skills you can put in there as well. And then at the bottom.
And Mel, just bringing us, because I think this is kind of, is there opportunity here to show, like, what if you haven't worked from home before? What if you haven't worked remotely before? you know, what if you're trying right now, you're looking for remote work, or you're looking for, you know, to kind of join the gig economy in a way. What is there opportunity here to showcase your suitability to that, or how would you work that through a CV? Because at the moment, I think most people are probably going to be needing to do that.
Absolutely. So certainly in the IT skills section, I might just create a section called additional skills, and then you can combine languages and IT and any others. Or if you wanted to draw their attention to that, if you did have specific IT digital skills beyond the standard ones here, so this is more sort of, you know, being a good user of MS Office, you could draw these out here. You can maybe have a digital skills section. Let's say you have extra experience with certain programs, you could really draw their attention to that, to show that you can really add value at this particular time. But I would also encourage you throughout your CV to, as Evelyn said, to really focus on those key skills that would be valuable now working remotely. So I think initiative is a big one. You can even say use my initiative to, or identified an issue that needed resolving and successfully proposed a solution to a partner. So, you know, you're showing that you can use your initiative, you can save time by getting on with problem solving on your own, rather than sort of constantly emailing a partner, hi, what do you think? Oh, you know, can I send you, you know, another thing to check, rather than one email with your proposed solution, time saving and, you know, self-starting in that sense.
And I think depending on what career stage you're at, obviously, I mean, if you're more junior, I think it's really good to even, it would be better to say that you've gotten feedback that you have great self-initiative, or that you're very independent in terms of problem solving. One point I'd love to just make here around the skills is, right now, because of COVID-19 and because of the impact on the economy, you have Harvard, you have so many amazing online education providers giving free courses. So if you feel like you're needing to become more attractive to work remotely, or to develop more of a digital kind of toolkit, you know, there's never been a better time than take an hour or two a day instead of Netflix and chill, and actually upskill, and you know, whether it's whatever it may be, there's just everything is out there right now, and I think it's an amazing time to get technically more skilled.
So for example, guys, you could probably do like a one-day course on how to, or a certified course on how to run a webinar, and add that to your achievements and positions of responsibility, and suddenly they're like, wow, what's a webinar? They can come in and do that for us. And of course, explain why that's powerful and helpful to, you know, attract clients, and increase growth, profitability, and market share. Boom, look at that commerciality. So just have a quick look, guys, at these 3 bullets, and see what you like best for the experience section. If we could just shrink that a touch, Evelyn, that would be wonderful. It's a little bit big at the moment. Is
that better?
Yep, perfect. So just have a quick read of those points and choose which you like best.
Develop training programs in multiple regions to reduce customer complaints. I'll always go for, I love seeing something like 3 where it's reduced customer complaints by 60%. And then you show the process as well, of how you did that to back it up.
Absolutely. Spot on. Exactly. So Evelyn and I both agreed number 3 is the best for all the reasons that Evelyn has said. So quantifying, good level of detail, some nice commercial words, and powerful action verbs, developing, implementing, reduced. So really, really good. So let's just have a quick look at the next slide, guys, so we can wrap up this and then have a look at your CV. I think it was Julie, possibly.
Christine and Sanam we have,
Great. So here you are, guys. We mentioned this earlier.
Just to remind everybody, obviously, if you can stick around, if you're on your lunch break, we're getting to 2 o'clock now, and we'll run over the hour. But if you can't stick around, we will be emailing you the replay, so you will still be able to watch it afterwards.
Exactly. So we don't need to really spend much time on this, guys. It's just the visual of what I explained earlier. Start simply. You can just start by putting examples of all the key bullet points that we've discussed and any extras from the job description in a nice, easy table. Then you can lift them straight into your CV and bespoke them to match the job description as much as possible, bearing in mind those wonderful standout remote working points we just discussed. So let's have a look at the next slide, if we may, Evelyn. Thank you very much. Oh, we'll come on to this one later. Or should we just look at it now as it's here? Let's have a quick look at it now. CV howlers. So no surprises here, guys. Could we just shrink it a touch, Evelyn? It's a little bit big at the moment.
Just trying to shrink it.
Perfect. You guys can start reading. You'll probably have a giggle looking at this. So have a little read of those points and see if you agree.
I've seen a lot of CVs with photos and also overly designed or kind of flowery fonts, which, you know, in the creative industries may or may not be seen as creative and kind of kooky and eccentric and, you know, stand outy. But I think there's a real fine line, Mel, isn't there?
Totally. Yeah, if you're applying for a job, you know, in a serious professional accounting firm or, you know, something that's more sort of straight down the line and not creative, you don't want any color or anything like that. We often see personal profiles. I'm an amazing communicator. I have strong interpersonal skills. Again, just cut the profile section out. Unless you're a career changer going from something like law to veterinary science and they're thinking, what the heck? Then it might be helpful. But otherwise, just weave those skills into the experience section. It's all about evidence. Also, be careful with exaggerating your experience. We're obviously selling ourselves here, but it can look quite comical when you read a CV of someone who's done, say, I don't know, let's say legal work experience, and they say, I was managing 5 cases in the run up to trial. I mean, obviously that's not what was happening. So, you know, there's a difference between showcasing what you've done and making the most of it, and obviously lying. We don't want to be doing either. So, just a little word of warning there. But I think the others are pretty self-explanatory. So, how do you guys feel about looking at the draft CV and just having a live look at that?
Okay, so let's go to, I'll just make sure it's open first.
Another point.
We'll take Christine's first. I haven't seen it, and neither has Mel, so this is very exciting. And just
what I like, guys, while Evelyn is manning the tech, another failing on CVs is not bespoking them enough. Again, the 2 takeaway points that I really hope you guys get from this is giving evidence of your skills and experience and bespoking that evidence. So bespoking it to the job description. As I said, you can lift the wording and just do it in stages. Take the stress out. Start with your lovely little log, print out the job description, highlight it, you know, cross through the words as you're weaving them in. So you can really take the stress out. Don't imagine getting it perfect, you know, first time round.
Mel, just before we do this, let's just take 2 questions I think that are relevant to what we've just covered. So Rose has said, is there an alternative way to quantify if you can't always state numbers, i.e. they're unknown or not able to disclose? And that's actually a really good point.
Fabulous point. Yeah, well done, Rose. I would say, firstly, you can say received praise from someone. You could say,
feedback, yeah.
What was that, Evelyn?
Feedback, client appreciation.
Absolutely. You could even say sought feedback to maximize my I don't know, growth opportunities. That's like a positive outcome as well. Maybe you were promoted, maybe you were asked to stay on, maybe you were asked to work on a new project as a result, and that could be quite implicit, but you can make more of that, you know, like successfully supported a partner on a, I don't know, a complex property transaction and was asked to support him on a £2 billion whatever next. You know?
Well, one thing actually, Mel, that this brings, I remember doing this with clients for years, and I would recommend anyone to do this. So, because you only need to do it once. So why not buddy up with a friend who is also looking to you know, upgrade their CV? So someone who's in the same place as you, and actually sit down and have a few hours and put a timer on and say, let's discuss each role that you had for 20 minutes, because when you're actually speaking to people, more comes out. If you're sitting there on your own, you know, it's hard to be, we're very subjective. Most people are very critical. They don't see the positives. You know, people are afraid to say too much or sort of, you're not in the right place. Whereas if you actually sit down, even just record yourself on your phone and record what you're saying to a friend and really help each other to draw out. I mean, that's what coaches do. We help you to draw out the best of what you've done, to articulate it, which is sometimes where I think a lot of people fall short, isn't it? They don't know how to articulate the value that they've added because they've never really sat around and thought about it too much. Mm-hmm. But it's the kind of exercise you really only need to do that once. per role, if you do it properly and then follow everything that Mel has said, you really cannot go wrong, and you're going to showcase, you know, your impact and your skill set to the maximum. But one other question there, Nick has just asked, he was following along obviously, and then he got a bit lost, and he said, you said we should include skills and languages in IT. And he said, wait, a skills section. So I'm assuming he means you not include your skills in the body of the role and you just leave it to the...
So what we mean by an additional skills section at the bottom, that's for stuff like IT, language learning, any specific skills you have with like coding or legal research tools. But the other skills I mentioned at the beginning, the sort of 8 to 10 killer skills, they should be woven into the body of your CV. So you wouldn't have, for example, at the bottom, great communication, analytical skills, that goes in the body. And just to add something to Evelyn's superb point about communication, with any of these CVs, cover letters, sometimes people struggle to write in a concise way. Say out loud what you want to write before you write it down, and it's usually the most concise version. So first thing, as Evelyn said, is to maybe record or say to a friend what you've been doing, so get the fullness of it. Don't worry about being concise for that bit. You're really trying to get the breadth of everything you did, all the juicy detail. And then once you've got that, then try and sort of make it more concise and succinct. So ask yourself, what would I say to, I don't know, someone in an interview right now, and try and write down what you say, because that's usually the most concise form. And you've seen that you can go straight in with worked on, reviewed, analyzed, rather than I analyzed and all this stuff. You can go straight in shortened form.
One point that Rob Mannix has just mentioned, which is actually really central to what we do at Seven. Most people, if you're not aware of Seven Career Coaching, many people come to us to get help and support to change career, because obviously that's fairly challenging for people at any stage, whether you're a junior professional all the way up to a senior executive, whether you're coming from being self-employed to an employee or the other way around. We work with, you know, anything you can imagine, and Mel has done a lot of amazing work with clients in all sorts of circumstances. But Rob has mentioned any top CV tips if trying to move to an unrelated industry, and how to focus more on transferables in a meaningful way. One point that I would add, we need so much more time for this, but we'll do another session similar to this with kind of add-ons. But one thing that I would say, I'm sure Mel, you've come across this, or you've probably recommended this, but if you're changing industry, or usually it's changing industry, or if you're going to an organization that you're super passionate about and you absolutely are just, as Mel said, it's your soulmate kind of company, getting creative is really important. And one of the things, I actually did it when I was a graduate myself. I created a very short presentation to showcase really my understanding of the organization and the wider industry. I studied the future trends. I studied their any media. I studied the top, the founders, the CEO, and the senior leadership team. And I really got in under the skin of, it was so much further than the job that I was going to do. But the whole point was to show my passion. And it's something I've helped a lot of people, jump from informational interview to actual interview is there something you can do? Can you write an article? Can you put together a business case? Can you put together a presentation? Now, what I have people do that are interviewing for us for different types of roles is I have them do a video. And what I'm looking for is, have they read the website? Do they know what we do? Do they care what we do? Have they gone through the team of coaches? Have they read our Google reviews? Like I'm kind of like just looking to see how much research have they actually done, and how authentically interested are they in the role? Because that's, as Christine asked earlier, loyalty and longevity. Well, it's not through skill set. It's really, as Mel was saying all along, it's through passion.
Yeah.
But Mel, what other kind of what else would you suggest in terms of career change?
In terms of career change, so I would say there is something called the skills-based CV that you can also do as an alternative, which has a slightly different format, and we won't go into depth now, but you can Google that, skills-based CV, click on images on Google, and you'll see it's a different layout. So sometimes what those have, they do sometimes have a personality profile at the beginning, explaining why you might be making quite a dramatic change in a different direction. So there might be a reason why you've done that. So you can just explain that at the top. And sometimes skills-based CVs don't necessarily start with the education section, that comes later. They sort of cluster your experience under the different skills that are mentioned in that job description. So let's say a job description really emphasizes I don't know, meeting new people. You might have that as one section with bullets underneath from a variety of different experiences you've had clustered in one sort of bulleted chunk. And then you might pick out another skill, or maybe 2 or 3 skills together, like interpersonal and communication skills, and give bulleted examples underneath of those. So if you're thinking, cripes, I don't know, finance experience, don't panic, because you may well have the skills that they need though. So that's when you can use the kind of that slightly different formatted career change or CV structure if you really are going to something different. Another option is, we spoke about bespoking the 2 experience sections. So let's say you go into finance section, and then finance experience and additional experience. You might be able to sort of have a broader term that's still bespoke. So let's say you want to go and work in something quite techy. You might possibly, depending on your level of experience, be able to call one section digital experience and another section other experience, and kind of draw out points from your experience as much as possible to sort of bespoke it to the sort of title of the section. But if you feel that the gap is too big, then you can consider the sort of career changer skills-based CV.
And actually, I've just been kind of summarizing some of the points you were making, but also just answering Rob. One thing that we might do, Mel, in the future is it would be great to do a CV session focused totally on career change, because it's a little bit different, isn't it? The strengths-based CV.
Yeah.
It also, I was just making a point there, there's no point in just doing a skills-based CV. You've got to have a fuller career change strategy around it.
Exactly.
You've got to use informational interviews. You have to be a lot more proactive, and you have to be a lot more strategic. So it's not one to be sending to job boards or recruiters.
And one thing I would also add to that great point that Evelyn made is, you might be thinking, oh my God, I'm changing career. There's this massive big hole. I don't have experience. Don't panic. You can acquire experience fast. So let's say you need to move into something now, and you're like, okay, I need a job now, but I know I want to go into a different area. You might take an interim job. I mean, let's just say working as a shelf stacker in Tesco, just to give you an example, which shows resilience and adaptability in someone who will get stuck in and add value. What you can do alongside that potentially is gain experience, which you can then add into your CV once you've done this interim experience. So I did this myself. I did, say, 3 internships or 3 very short work experiences as well in different sections. And before you know it, you've got those 3 evidence-based sort of sections under your bespoke section. So you've gone from having a big black hole to work experience examples. And here's a little secret: even if you've just done, say, 3 days work experience somewhere, it doesn't matter. You don't need to say that. You throw yourself in, you add that, you get value, and then you get some beefy bullets, and suddenly you look like you have bespoke experience. So you can transform that fast.
That's a really, really excellent point. Let's get to this, to Christine's CV.
Yeah.
Just to anyone that's listening, on next Wednesday, the 22nd at 7 p.m, we have one of our coaches, Catherine Mante. She's an ex-recruiter, actually. She was a top recruiter in the city for many years in executive search. But we're coming together on Wednesday, the 22nd, for a LinkedIn specific session. So it's recruiters hacks. There's apps that we use and we recommend. Catherine has loads of ways to really maximize LinkedIn, because what we find with our clients is and you probably find this, well, most people don't actually know how to properly use LinkedIn to their advantage, and are just using kind of the basics and having, depending on people contacting them. So do check that out next Wednesday night. And if you can't make 7 p.m. next Wednesday night, do sign up anyway, and we'll email you the replay. The replay of the webinars as well that we're doing, it's going to be available for a short amount of time. So we're probably going to make them available for the quarantine, but maybe not after that. So do definitely sort of watch what you can now. So I'm just going to share my screen, Mel. And
while Evelyn's doing that, guys, just an extra little bonus point. If you're ever going through recruiters, they'll often ask you to send your CV in Word, and what they do is they often manipulate it themselves because they're pros at selling you. So they'll if you're going that route, they'll often sort of do that for you and twist it into the most bespoke form. So just bear that in mind as well.
So Mel, can you see Christine's CV?
Yeah, lovely. This looks great at a glance. Fab. So I love the fact that your name is bold, lovely font. I'd move that into the middle. That's just an aesthetic point. It's ultimately up to you. I'd move the email and telephone number centralized under your name, Christine. And then it's just all in one clear place. Brilliant. Multilingual, Mandarin, English, fabulous.
For some reason, the telephone seems to be going over the summary in the PDF. So that's obviously a technical issue that needs to be figured out.
Yes. what would be good to know, Christine, is what job you're applying to. Are you looking to apply to anything right now? And then I can tailor my advice.
She's in retail, it looks like.
Yeah, I'm going to assume that you want to stay in retail, Christine. So just to whiz back up to the top super quickly, because you've got a little profile here. So you mentioned I can't read the top line because it's blotted out, but you have experience in international relations, finance, media. So seeking a move to where my cross-cultural communications background and broad range of people skills can be put to effective use. Yeah, so it's good to be really specific here. So where are you moving to? And really sort of try and bespoke it as much as possible. So again, look at that job description if you have one, and really try and weave in some of those core words so it's very specific. It's great that you have that very commercial experience though. Yes, and I centralize that rather than having it sort of to the left, so and maybe call it personal profile. It's great that you've got your languages in there because that's standout information that will set you aside from the crowd with your Mandarin. So career to date. Let's move down the page a little bit if possible. What's cultural communication? Yes, okay. So I'm not quite sure exactly what area you're looking to move into, Christine, but this is looking really good at a glance. So again, there might be different ways of setting this out, either a skills-based approach, which we mentioned, which is really a separate masterclass to this one. If you've got enough relevant experience for the area you're going into, you'd give this first experience section a name. So let's say you wanted to go into, let's just say for the sake of experience, for the sake of argument now, you're going to stay in retail. You'd have retail experience. I love how you've got your dates. They're very similar, great format. You've got the key information in bold, what you did, senior style advisor at, and where you did it. Perfect. What you need to do, which you guys know by now, is to break up that chunk of text into some nice bullets. So 3 to 5 bullets. So let's just have a quick read, all of us, of the first paragraph there. Yeah, this has got some great buzzwords. Well done, Christine. So some nice commercial language here. We can see at a glance. Store daily operations, dealing with aftercare service. Great, that's specific. Product repairs, again, specific. Customer complaints. Great, there's communication skills and problem solving. Mm-hmm. Writing the daily report for store performance. You might be able to make more of that. So come back to those earlier points. What was I doing? How was I doing it? Break it down. Have that chat with a friend that Evelyn mentioned. Put in a little bit more juicy detail there. Are there any measurable numbers you can put in? Were you doing a number of reports a day? Did you improve anything by a percentage? Did you get positive feedback? Was there any positive outcome you can flesh out there? You don't need to have the I ams. You can just have the bullet assisted with delivered training to junior members of staff. How many? Put in that number. That's impressive. Communication, resilience. And if you ever worked under time deadlines or pressures, that goes to resilience. So ask yourself, what was the most stressful part of this job? Because there you have resilience right there, and make sure you have that in. So it might be, doing something in half an hour, or it might have been working during really busy Christmas periods, or identifying shoplifters, something very specific about problem solving. So this is a lovely basis. But just step back and ask about numbers, positive outcomes. What was I doing? What were the stages? How was I doing it? And why was I doing it? This is a really good draft.
Something I think I'd add in there, Mel, as well, is if I was looking at this CV, why is there a difference between your most recent role at Givenchy? I know you obviously worked in Saint Laurent for 4 years, so you probably feel like you have a lot more to tell. But for me, I would be kind of wondering, why is there so much in this? It's a different format to the role in Givenchy, and I think that's a weaker point. So I would definitely mirror the formatting. There's no numbers. So for me, if you're in sales, if you're in retail, it's a commercial role. Mm-hmm. So for me, I'd want to know, what were your targets? What were you hitting? In as much as you can give. But I mean, I want to know if someone's able to handle, a £300,000 target, or is it a £20,000 target? That's a very different, type of target. Would you agree on that point, Mel, about mirroring the same format for each role?
Definitely. I think that's spot on and very important. Have those bullets across your CV. And just Evelyn made some superb points there about retail specific skills. a couple of other things you might be able to ask yourself here, Christine, is a couple of skills you haven't mentioned. Organizing, were you ever juggling a huge amount of products, documents, and also creativity and innovation? Did you ever create something, no matter how small, or come up with a new idea or a system that streamlined, reduced costs, improved efficiency? So do always bear that in mind. Literally go through the skills list and just check off, what have I missed off here? What else could I show off?
Yeah, I think in Givenchy as well, I can see the last line is, I'm delivering training to junior members of staff. I think much more of that.
Definitely.
Assisting the management team by writing the daily reports. Again, as Mel said earlier, make much more of that.
Yeah.
Even though you've only been there for a short time, I think you've got to milk every role for everything that you can, and really just take every opportunity you can to showcase what you're really doing on a day-to-day level.
And
let's quickly just go through this because we're way over time, and I did want to have a quick look at one other CV if we can just quickly do that.
Sure. Just a quick point, guys. If you say like wrote a report, step back, what was the process? Because you would have been analysing information to write that. So just show off what were the stages. So let's have a look further down then. Great. Best performer, fabulous, positive outcome. Again, this looks really succinct, but have it in the same format absolutely as above. Again, when you say assisting with research, try and be a bit more specific. Paint that picture for the blind person. What was the subject? What sort of research? And related tasks, too vague. Either be specific or cut it out. Again, yes, you were learning about the industry, but try and make it less sort of essay-ish in style. During the work experience, it was very exciting. You could just have learned how fast-paced consulting agencies, function, or some specific points there, or understood how, I don't know, these 3 particular parts of PR worked together. So you're showing you can hit the ground running. You understand the sort of commercial environment.
Yeah, the one thing I'm seeing here is a lack of numbers.
Yes.
If you think of somebody flicking through your CV in a matter of seconds, whether it's a recruiter, recruitment agency, a hiring manager, you really only have a few seconds. And if you're in any role to do with sales or business in any way, I mean, there should be a direct commercial impact that your role is making. So numbers are even more important, which are completely lacking here.
Definitely. Also, there's on the right hand table above there. Again, obviously, it's too wordy here. So you said there was a strong expectation for taking individual responsibility and dealing with various situations. If you read it out loud, you can hear that you're running out of breath, which is an indication it's too long. So rather than saying there was an expectation to take responsibility, instead you can be much shorter. Use my initiative to add value to X, Y, and Z areas by doing A, B, C. So jump straight in to the skill that you are using, and then that info is implicit that you've got above.
I think to be fair, I mean, Christine, this is obviously, the CV, as you probably have learned, is way too long, and it's kind of hodgepodge in terms of the format isn't consistent between the top roles and the bottom. There's a complete lack of numbers, which is really important. And as Mel said, there's sentences that are too long. It's too paragraphy. So hopefully you can take away some of the tips from Mel today. Ooh, I need to stop sharing there. You can take away some tips and apply those.
You've got some nice commercial language in there, Christine, and you've got some standout, unique selling points. And I like how you made, you had those in your Mandarin. So whenever you're doing your CV, another question you can ask is, what's special about me? And if you're thinking nothing, that will never be true. What do I have that other people don't? So when I went into law, I'd had experience working in commercial property. Now you might think, well, how's that relevant? Well, it is, because every law firm has a property team. Bingo, helpful. You'll always have something special. What's unique? Make sure you've woven it in.
Marcel has asked you, he said, you said that a personal profile is not needed. Christine's CV has a small profile at the top.
So my answer to that would be, if you're going to stay in a similar area, then a personal profile is a waste of space. Just weave the skills and experience into the bullets. If you're a career changer, it may be more helpful. So if you're moving from something to something really quite different, they'll be looking at your CV and maybe thinking, well, what the heck? There's one piece of glaringly obvious missing info. Why are you moving from law to training as a vet? And that's where the profile can help. Okay, so if you're moving into a different area, that's where a succinct profile can add value, but only really in that instance.
And one last point, Tashi said she has been in media sales but wants to move out of it into a more production-based role. Are numbers then still as important?
So in a media role to...
She wants to go from media sales into more of a production role.
Oh, okay. Well, I would firstly maybe ask yourself, what are the similarities, so that you're clear on how you've already got some of the skills that they want. And then I'd identify what are the main differences. A key way you can do this is by going onto Google and putting in production vacancies or the keywords for the jobs that you're applying for, and do the same for your previous job, and notice the different kind of language in the job descriptions. So notice what the similarities and play to those, and with the differences, try and bespoke your CV as much as possible in your bullets to that kind of language, and ask yourself again, that sort of friend example, what would I say to a friend? How could I tweak this as much as possible so it's relevant to production? What are the key buzzwords in production? What are the key buzzwords in banking? What are the key buzzwords in coaching? So coaching might be empowerment, building relationships with clients. Banking might be analyzing complex spreadsheets, carrying out complex financial research across pension funds. So get familiar with the language from job descriptions for the sorts of things you're applying to. That's such an easy win. It makes you look so commercial when your CV is littered with that language and very much reflecting the job description.
And just a few other things. I'm going through the questions and I feel like we've covered quite a few. I think, Tashi, hopefully you feel like we've answered. Sanams in education, do we still include this at the top, even if you had more than X years of experience? How far back? I'm not exactly sure what that means.
I think is it relevant to include education if, say, you're at university, say, I don't know, 15 years? I would say personally, you'll see what Evelyn thinks, but I think it's important because most people are interested in your academic ability, and of course, education doesn't always reflect that. And obviously, say you've got not very good grades back then. If they're really bad, you can potentially leave off the grades, and your commercial experience will hopefully wing it for you. So to give you an example, one of my brothers got a third-class degree, not even a 2-2, a third. However, he worked for free and he worked his way up to the very top. He's now on 6 figures and an amazing job. So they won't care about, bad university grade by this stage, because he's proved himself in terms of his commercial experience. So that would be my advice there.
What we'll do is just let's have a 2-second look, Mel, at the other CV, just because I said we would. We've gone way over time. But I know Sanam is probably waiting for us to just have a very quick look at his CV. And I'll just share my screen and then we'll wrap up. And just everyone who is still here, we will share this in an email and some key points as well, so you can review it later if you're currently watching at work. So full screen. And so here's Sanam's CV.
Is that, we can make it a bit bigger, Evelyn? It's in a third of the screen at the moment.
Oh yeah, sorry.
That's all right.
Sure.
Well, guys, this is a sales document, so even if you're panicking about gaps, it's all about how we sort of not spin information, but how we bespoke it. Okay. So and now we can see. There we are. Perfect. Okay, this looks fabulous at a glance. I like your name. Very succinct at the top. 6+ years of experience in project and program management. Okay, so what are you looking to go into, Sanam?
And I would definitely just quickly point out, currently focus is a grammatical error. So either say current focus is or currently focused on.
Mm-hmm. So you say you're currently focusing on building financial service products into an existing payments platform. I'm guessing that you want to stay in a similar area because you haven't you can't see otherwise there. Again, it's up to you whether you leave the profile in. Personally, I would just pop all this in the chunk of the CV. I'm assuming that whatever you're in isn't banking or finance from the look of this, or consulting. So I'd make this 2 pages. I'm not sure how long the whole thing is. You want to definitely have white space between each section of experience. It's much easier to read. I'm loving the bullets. Again, easy to read, some great powerful action words: leveraged, developed, planned from inception. Fantastic, some great numbers.
Lots of numbers, yeah.
20 million active users, so measurable outcomes, defining the government framework for this program, very specific commercial language. You've explained why you're doing that. Very, very good. Well done. Yes, and you're specific, expanding financial services available via M-Pesa. So you're being very specific again. You're painting the picture for the blind person. managing a team from 3 different suppliers. Again, specific use of numbers, maybe put that in a number 3, as Evelyn said.
I mean, to be honest, sort of, this looks like quite a strong CV. I'm wondering what the
yeah, it looks pretty good to me.
What his brief is.
Yes.
Or what his challenge is.
Distinction, Harvard. Yes, you could even put the education at the top because, you know, LSE distinction is immediately impressive.
I think just from a formatting perspective, Mel, from my point of view, it's you're sort of, it's 1.5 pages. And for me, it's really kind of it's not very well formatted. I'd like a lot more white space. You could put this over 2 pages. It would be much easier to read, much more comfortable to read. And also even just something like, you know, even just something like Harvard University, you know, an amazing university to go to, but it's all kind of jammed in together, so it doesn't stand out. Whereas white space around that would really kind of help you to showcase that. And I think spreading it across 2 pages. I also sometimes think this font, this may not be. There's certain fonts that work better digitally, and I think maybe Google that. I'm not going to get into that now, but I do sometimes think this font, like for me right now, it's actually quite difficult to read for some reason, and certain fonts work better digitally than others, and others work better printed. So maybe into that.
Arial's quite a good one if you want to have a go with that one. And also, if you like, you can justify the text so it comes to the right-hand side of the page. That's just aesthetic, really.
Yeah.
Yeah, as Evelyn said, fill the 2 pages. So you can do that easily, creating more white space. And you may have other things you can add in, like achievements and positions of responsibility. Like maybe you do volunteering in your spare time, which, you know, a lot of organizations like. It shows you're a nice person who wants to make a difference, who's proactive, who has initiative, who cares about society. Maybe there are other things that you've done that show achievements and positions of responsibility that you do in your spare time, even if they're not directly related to the role. So that's showing what Evelyn said earlier, is the passion. You've really got that go the extra mile extra as a person. You know, you're dynamic, you're proactive, you're upskilling.
The other thing I would say is maybe it depends on what you're looking to do, but you've got a very interesting dissertation topic, which is kind of techie. The role of mobile money in Kenya, depending on obviously the role that you're going for now, I would potentially make more out of that. It's certainly a talking point in interviews that I think you should really use your advantage, because it ties in somewhat to what you're doing. Hopefully, Sanam, that allows you to kind of, I think reformatting is really the most important thing for you, in white space. Sanam says, I want to move from project management into fintech to an operations role. Well, that's good to know, isn't it?
Yeah.
Any last points on that, Mel?
Fintech. So again, I do the same thing, Sanam. I'd look at fintech, you know, job descriptions, get really clear on the lingo, the buzzwords that they all love, because there are specific buzzwords. It looks like you've got very good commercial experience in something techie anyway, which is positive. So I guess you want to be showing that you're comfortable with the fin aspect, the financial aspect, as well as the tech aspect. And if it's tech, what platforms do they, you know, work with? And how can you show for any gaps that you have? How can you show adaptability, that you use your initiative, that you upskill, that you're someone who can add value as a, you know, in lots of ways, whether it's through teamwork, through resilience, working under pressure, being able to analyze new information quickly, which you might be if you're in a slightly different role, being creative or innovative. So as Evelyn said, what extra skills do you have that might trump someone who might have maybe a little bit more fintech experience? If you've shown that during this time, wow, look, he's got a certification in webinars, or I don't know, a certification in something fintech related, you might stand out as someone with that get up and go that they really feel matches their cultural vibe.
The other thing I would say, Sanam, is you've got a great opportunity with fintech. It's quite accessible. There's a lot of networking. You know, if you think of the London space physically, there's so many startup kind of networking groups and fintech groups. You've got General Assembly, you know, you've got the Google campus. I mean, literally the world is your oyster. Obviously right now everything's online, but you know, even looking at your dissertation, which is to do with mobile money in Kenya, are there things that you have knowledge in or interest in? Could you be a speaker at one of these events, or could you find other people who are passionate about these topics that are in fintech and sort of connect with them and really sort of start. I would use networking if I were you too, and use the areas you're passionate about to sort of infiltrate the areas of fintech you want to get into and connect with people, because you need to sort of, I mean, you've got a very commercial CV, but you also need to show that you're, you know, it's a different world, isn't it? Fintech isn't sort of the fast moving kind of the retail space or the kind of Vodafone space, but it is very transferable. But I think networking is really, really important, and showing why you're passionate and what you can offer. Great. Well, Mel, thank you. That was a pretty bumper session. We've gone way over. Hopefully everybody who's still here has gotten plenty of value, and anyone rewatching is going to get lots out of this. Mel, we need to go in, come up with a few dates for follow-up sessions, because we obviously had a really positive response to doing a career change focused CV session and maybe a cover letter session. So let's see if we can do that in the coming weeks. And just to sort of summarize, if anyone is interested in working with 7 Career Coaching, Mel is one of our star career coaches and helps lots of our clients change career, get promoted, move from academia into industry, or change as you did from, you changed yourself from the legal profession into career coaching. Mel's a qualified lawyer, so watch out. But also we have a call to action button at the bottom, and you can speak to our team and discuss with them how we work. We work in a very tailored way. So our team will kind of talk you through the framework and really kind of explain to you what it's like, and all the details you would need to know. So do that if you are interested in. Thank you, Valerie. Thank you, Pia. Thank you, Nick. Thank you, Christine, Anna, Olian, Rob, Sanam, Tashi. It was great, everybody. And thank you, Mel, so much for generously giving much more of your time than we intended. Thank you, guys. Take care.
Bye.